Hello again, family. This is day 64 of our Reading Through the Bible Together in a Year series. And today we're in the book of Joshua, chapters 10 through 12. Now, leading up to this point, Joshua and the men of Israel have just made a covenant with some of the people of Canaan, the Gibeonites. And the Gibeonites lied to Joshua, said they were from a strange land. And so Joshua went ahead and made a covenant with them without asking counsel of Yahweh. Now, that was a mistake. However, they made a covenant and then they didn't kill Gibeon. So the Gibeonites are now workers for Israel and live among them, and that's just how it is. So let's see how that plays out a little bit today. Now when Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Yehoshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Giv'on had made peace with Israel and were among them, they were very afraid, because Giv'on was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. Therefore Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoham, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Yarmut, Yaphiah, king of Lachish, and Devir, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me and help me. Let's strike Giv'on, for they have made peace with Yehoshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmut, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together and went up, they and all their armies, and encamped against Giv'on and made war against it. The men of Giv'on sent to Yehoshua at the camp of Gilgal, saying, Don't abandon your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us. Help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the hill country have gathered together against us. So Yehoshua went up from Gilgal, he and the whole army with him, including all the mighty men of valor. Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Don't fear them, for I have delivered them into your hands. Not a man of them will stand before you. Yehoshua therefore came to them suddenly. He marched from Gilgal all night. Yahweh confused them before Israel. He killed them with a great slaughter at Giv'on, and chased them by the way of the ascent of Bet-Horon, and struck them to Azekah and to Makkedah. As they fled from before Israel, while they were at the descent of Bet-Horon, Yahweh hurled down great stones from the sky on them to Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the children of Israel killed with the sword. Then Yehoshua spoke to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. He said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still on Giv'on. You, moon, stop in the valley of Aiyalon. The sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the nation had avenged themselves of their enemies. Isn't this written in the book of Yashar? The sun stayed in the middle of the sky and didn't hurry to go down about a whole day. There was no day like that before it or after it, that Yahweh listened to the voice of a man, for Yahweh fought for Israel. Yehoshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp to Gilgal. These 5 kings fled and hid themselves in the cave at Makkedah. Yehoshua was told, saying, The 5 kings have been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah. Yehoshua said, Roll large stones to cover the cave's entrance, and set men by it to guard them. But don't stay there. Pursue your enemies and attack them from the rear. Don't allow them to enter into their cities, for Yahweh your God has delivered them into your hand. When Yehoshua and the children of Israel had finished killing them with a very great slaughter until they were consumed, and the remnant which remained of them had entered into the fortified cities, all the people returned to the camp to Yehoshua and Makkedah in peace. None moved his tongue against any of the children of Israel. Then Yehoshua said, Open the cave entrance and bring those 5 kings out of the cave to me. They did so and brought those 5 kings out of the cave to him, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmut, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. When they brought those kings out to Yehoshua, Yehoshua called for all the men of Israel, and said to the chiefs of the men of war who went with them, Come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. They came near and put their feet on their necks. Yehoshua said to them, Don't be afraid, nor be dismayed. Be strong and courageous, for Yahweh will do this to all your enemies against whom you fight. Afterward Yehoshua struck them, put them to death, and hanged them on 5 trees. They were hanging on the trees until the evening. At the time of the going down of the sun, Yehoshua commanded, and they took them down off the trees, and threw them into the cave in which they had hidden themselves, and laid great stones on the mouth of the cave, which remain to this very day. Yehoshua took Makkedah on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword, with its king. He utterly destroyed it and all the souls who were in it. He left no one remaining. He did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Yehoshua passed from Makkedah and all Israel with him to Livnah and fought against Livnah. Yahweh delivered it also with its king into the hand of Israel. He struck it with the edge of the sword and all the souls who were in it. He left no one remaining in it. He did to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. Yehoshua passed from Livnah and all Israel with him to Lachish and encamped against it and fought against it. Yahweh delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel. He took it on the second day and struck it with the edge of the sword, with all the souls who were in it, according to all that he had done to Livnah. Then Horam, king of Getzer, came up to help Lachish, and Yehoshua struck him and his people, until he had left him no one remaining. Yehoshua passed from Lachish and all Israel with him to Eglon, and they encamped against it and fought against it. They took it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword. He utterly destroyed all the souls who were in it that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. Yehoshua went up from Eglon and all Israel with him to Hebron, and they fought against it. They took it and struck it with the edge of the sword, with its king and all its cities, and all the souls who were in it. He left no one remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon. But he utterly destroyed it, and all the souls who were in it. Yehoshua returned, and all Israel with him, to Davir, and fought against it. He took it with its king and all its cities. They struck them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed all the souls who were in it. He left no one remaining. As he had done to Hebron, so he did to Davir, and to its king. As he had done also to Livnah, and to its king. So Yehoshua struck all the land, the hill country, the south, the lowland, the slopes, and all their kings. He left no one remaining, but he utterly destroyed all that breathed, as Yahweh, the God of Israel, commanded. Yehoshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea, even to Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even to Giv'on. Yehoshua took all these kings and their land at one time, because Yahweh, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Yehoshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp to Gilgal. When Yavin, king of Hatzor, heard of it, he sent to Yovav, king of Madon, to the king of Shimron, to the king of Achshaph, and to the kings who were on the north in the hill country, in the Arava south of Kinnerot, in the lowland, and in the heights of Dor on the west, to the Canaanite on the east and on the west, the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite in the hill country, and the Hivite under Hermon, in the land of Mizpah. They went out, they and all their armies with them, many people, even as the sand that is on the seashore in multitude, with very many horses and chariots. All these kings met together, and they came and encamped together at the waters of Merom to fight with Israel. Yahweh said to Yehoshua, "Don't be afraid because of them, for tomorrow at this time I will deliver them all slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire." So Yehoshua came suddenly with all the warriors against them by the waters of Merom and attacked them. Yahweh delivered them into the hands of Israel, and they struck them and chased them to Great Sidon and Misrephot Maim, and to the valley of Mizpeh eastward. They struck them until they left them no one remaining. Yehoshua did to them as Yahweh told him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. Yehoshua turned back at that time and took Hatzor and struck its king with the sword, for Hatzor used to be the head of all those kingdoms. They struck all the souls who were in it with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was no one left who breathed. He burned Hatzor with fire. Yehoshua captured all the cities of the kings with their kings, and he struck them with the edge of the sword and utterly destroyed them, as Moshe the servant of Yahweh commanded. But as for the cities that stood on their mounds, Israel burned none of them, except Hatzor only. Yehoshua burned that. The children of Israel took all the plunder of these cities with the livestock as plunder for themselves, but every man they struck with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them. They didn't leave any who breathed. As Yahweh commanded Moshe his servant, so Moshe commanded Yehoshua. Yehoshua did so. He left nothing undone of all that Yahweh commanded Moshe. So Yehoshua captured all that land, the hill country, all the south, all the land of Goshen, the lowland, the Arava, the hill country of Israel, and the lowland of the same, from Mount Halak, that goes up to Seir, even to Baal Gad, in the valley of Levonon, under Mount Hermon. He took all their kings, struck them, and put them to death. Yehoshua made war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel, except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Giv'on. They took all in battle, for it was of Yahweh to harden their hearts, to come against Israel in battle, that he might utterly destroy them, that they might have no favor, but that he might destroy them as Yahweh commanded Moshe. Yehoshua came at that time and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Devir, from Anav, and from all the hill country of Yehuda, and from all the hill country of Israel. Yehoshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. There were none of the Anakim left in the land of the children of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. So Yehoshua took the whole land according to all that Yahweh spoke to Moshe, and Yehoshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes. Then the land had rest from war. Now these are the kings of the land whom the children of Israel struck and possessed their land beyond the Yarden toward the sunrise, from the valley of the Arnon to Mount Hermon and all the Arava eastward. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon and ruled from Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and the middle of the valley, and half Gilead, even to the river Yabok, the border of the children of Ammon, and the Arava to the sea of Kinnerot, eastward, and to the sea of the Arava, even the salt sea, eastward, the way to Bet Yeshimot, and on the south, under the slopes of Pisgah. And the border of Og, king of Bashan, of the remnant of the Rephaim, who lived in Ashtaroth, and at Edrei, and ruled in Mount Hermon, and in Salakah, and in all Bashan, to the border of the Geshurites, and the Maacathites, and half Gilead, the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moshe the servant of Yahweh and the children of Israel struck them. Moshe the servant of Yahweh gave it for a possession to the Reubenites, and the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. These are the kings of the land whom Yehoshua and the children of Israel struck beyond the Jordan westward, from Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon, even to Mount Halak, that goes up to Seir. Yehoshua gave it to the tribes of Israel for a possession according to their divisions, in the hill country, and in the lowland, and in the Arava, and in the slopes, and in the wilderness, and in the south, the Hittite, the Amorite, and the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. The king of Jericho, 1. The king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, 1. The king of Jerusalem, 1. The king of Hebron, 1. The king of Yarmut, 1. The king of Lachish, 1. The king of Eglon, 1. The king of Getzer, 1. The king of Devir, 1. The king of Geder, 1. The king of Hormah, 1. The king of Arad, 1. The king of Livnah, 1. The king of Adullam, 1. The king of Makkedah, 1. The king of Bethel, 1. The king of Tappuah, 1. The king of Hefer, 1. The king of Athek, 1. The king of Lasharon, 1. The king of Madon, 1. The king of Hatzor, 1. The king of Shimron Meron, 1. The king of Achshaph, 1. The king of Ta'anach, 1. The king of Megiddo, 1. The king of Kadesh, 1. The king of Yokneam in Carmel, 1. The king of Dor in the height of Dor, 1. The king of Goim in Gilgal, 1. The king of Tirzah, 1. All the kings, 31. So many Hebrew words or names. It's gonna just get worse from here, I'm afraid, in this book. It's just gonna be a lot more, but that's okay. We'll get through it and it'll be fine. I'll just have to drink a lot of water or something. But anyways, one thing I'd like to pay attention to in this reading from today is in chapter 10 of Joshua. This scene where the other kings of Canaan are attacking Gibeon because they made a covenant with Israel. And so Gibeon says, hey, Joshua and Israel, come help us, come save us from these kings because we made a covenant with you. And so Joshua leads Israel into battle against these 5 kings, and he chases them for miles and up a mountain, and God's throwing stones down the mountain at these kings and stuff. It's like this big fantastical day, which ends with Joshua's calling out the sun and say, sun, stop in your place, and hey, moon, stop in your place, because he needs the day to stand still until the battle is complete. It's like this huge, amazing scene, and it's fascinating. But this one verse that I like to point out, it's verse 14 of chapter 10. It says, there was no day like that before it or after, when Yahweh listened to the voice of a man. Yahweh fought for Israel. Now that's interesting because we take the idea of listened in our perspective, and we think, well, people before this have prayed to Yahweh, and Yahweh has made decisions based on people's prayers, right? What about when Moses goes up the mountain and says, Yahweh, don't destroy these people, like, please, what does it say about you? And God's like, okay, because of you, I will not destroy them, right? So it's we have situations before this where people pray and they negotiate with Yahweh, and they say, please do this, and he says, okay, I'll do this because of you, right? But it's the word listened that I don't think we understand in this context, because behind the translation in this word listen is the Hebrew word shema. It's the same word that is used in Hear, O Israel. Listen, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind, right? It's hear, it's listen. This word shema, it carries the connotation of obey. And I think that's why a lot of people, or the majority of people, don't translate this passage with anything that could say obey, because nobody wants to write, this is the time when Yahweh obeyed a man. Understandably, we wouldn't, it's uncomfortable to say that. But that Hebrew word does carry that connotation, and I think it's important. It's the only way that it actually really makes sense, because we've seen God, Yahweh, listen to men before in the idea that they pray to him and he makes decisions. But there's never been a time where God simply is told what to do by a person and does it. Right? I think that's what this verse is getting at, which, however uncomfortable that makes you, it's in the Hebrew. What the Hebrew says is shema, and that is hear and obey. It's tied into one word. You can't really have one without the other in the word shema. And so that's an interesting thing to think about. It seems like Joshua is the only person, especially according to this verse, there was no day before it or after where Yahweh did what a man told him to do, and that would be stopping the sun in its place and stopping the moon in its place. And I think it makes it even more odd of a situation, because the whole reason why Joshua is in this battle at this time is because he made a covenant with people of the land that he wasn't supposed to make a covenant with. So, man, what are we supposed to take away from this story? I don't know, but it is fascinating. So I hope I've given you something to think about or disagree with or contemplate. I don't know. I just want you thinking. That's all. So I hope you do that. I hope you go ahead and think on this wonderful day.